Good morning. Hardly a conversation goes by today where the word AI does not find its way. And that's what we are to discuss today with one of the leading organizations in AI, which is Nvidia. One of the largest organizations in the world has been leading AI transformation not only from a business perspective but also with the governments as well. Today we are very honored to have Ms. Shilpa Kolhatkar, who is the Director for Business Development for Government Public Organizations globally, as well as the head of the AI nations, which helps the governments adopt AI into their policy, into their investments and capacities. Welcome to the brand new episode of Policy Square, brought to you by Primus Partners and associated with Outlook. We are very excited to have Ms. Shilpa here today, and we would like to hear from her about the plans that Nvidia has as well as for India. Welcome, Shilpa, to India and of course to the Policy Square podcast. We are very, very glad to have you here. I want to start with congratulating you on bringing the best of the minds of AI around the world to India as we speak for the AI Summit, which Jensen would also be attending. So congratulations for that. And as a daughter of India, I also want to ask you some questions about the trifecta of India, Nvidia, and of course the AI. And would be very, very keen to learn from you on what Nvidia's thoughts are, not only for AI in general and also in India in particular. So thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you, Sameer, and very excited to be here and with Primus, and very excited also about our Nvidia's AI Summit, which is happening here this week.
Absolutely. Thank you. So if we can begin. Nvidia is one of the companies which actually realize the potential of what AI and the processing power that is needed. And Jensen invested into the latest technologies 2 decades ago, and it's now that the world is realizing the kinds of technologies or the infrastructure that is needed. So we're very keen to know more about what was the thought then, and now that Nvidia and AI has become mainstream, what are the thoughts that you have or the vision that you have for Nvidia?
Yeah. Look, computers, supercomputing, and AI has transformed the world. It's transformed every industry, and it's transforming every nation. I look after AI Nations, which is the initiative around helping governments to advance their AI strategies. And in that sense, it's really the perfect time to see how AI can bring about transformation. And the way Nvidia is looking at it is right from edge to cloud to data centers, enabling that the outcomes for the nation, for the industry. So our vision is very much aligned with national strategies, with industries who are looking to transform in terms of how they can use AI to achieve outcomes. Nvidia did start out as a gaming and a graphics company, and we have really evolved and taken some of the same principles and applied that to accelerated computing and now to AI, when AI has now become mainstream. The vision is really to democratize AI, computers, and our vision is that providing that ease of use and access to everybody, even if everybody is not a data scientist or an engineer, the ability to use AI as a tool should be in the hands of everyone. And we are really focused on that. That's our vision.
I was reading Jensen's thoughts on AI and data centers, and for AI to succeed, you need massive data center and compute and storage facilities. But he was not calling them data centers. He was referring to them as factories of ideas. It was very interesting and fresh thought. If you can just go a bit deeper into what exactly does it mean?
Certainly. So we've all heard of this fact that now we are in this fourth industrial revolution. And so what it is that just like the Industrial Revolution 100 years ago, when factories were the things that were raw material was being converted into goods, jobs were being created in that, your economies were, and GDP was tied to that. Today, it's a lot about AI and the production of intelligence. So your raw material is actually your data, and that's what goes into these factories, into these data centers, and what comes out is intelligence. And hence, these data centers are nothing but AI factories, where your raw material is data and data sets. and you're producing tokens, you're producing intelligence, which can be applied to a variety of different outcomes for agriculture, for education, for healthcare, and whatnot. So that's that whole idea around AI factories, the ability of a nation to produce intelligence domestically, to have job creation tied to that, to tie your economic growth and societal development to these AI
So the idea
factories.
is that these factories basically becomes the enablers for creatives and the innovators and the startups to use these technologies to create use cases for the society and businesses.
Absolutely, absolutely. These AI factories become the engine of economic growth. They become the engine of scientific discovery and research, both basic research as well as applied research. And it becomes the platform for public innovation and for implementation of AI solutions. So, on all three levels.
From this point, I would also like to understand when we talk about AI from a national perspective. So, in India, these two competing thoughts or visions have come about, and one is that we should have a lot of GPUs in India, invest a lot into GPUs, data centers, and own the hardware of the AI. And then there is another competing view that it should be about use cases, that India should be investing a lot into use cases. So when you help us, what is your vision for India? What should we be focusing on more? And what parts of each should we
Yeah.
concentrate on?
Yeah, great question. So it's first of all great to see how India has prioritized AI and investments in AI and the infrastructure and the related ecosystems that are required to go along with this. And our vision is aligned with that. And hence, I would say that in terms of the importance of the infrastructure and compute infrastructure, which is unique to AI, and you need that special set of AI hardware, software, algorithms, and applications, and that entire stack. It is not just about AI compute infrastructure. It is a lot about the ecosystem. So in that sense, when you bring in that ecosystem, is where then you then start talking about producing applications which are specific to a domain, whether it's healthcare, whether it's agriculture. And so the best practice around that is thinking about it holistically as an infrastructure plus an ecosystem play. That also helps to build that competitive advantage for a nation, that you're bringing in your entire economy, you're bringing in that ecosystem of startups and SMEs who can then produce these applications locally that are specific to this industry in India.
Why do you think? Because we have been, for the last 2 decades, it has all been, not on-prem and shifting to cloud. And why do you think that here, in AI's case, it is important that from a national perspective, we should have the hardware?
Absolutely. Now, back in the day, countries used to always think about utilities and, energy independence, for example, the ability of a country to power your own requirements. And so this is no different. The ability of a country to have sovereignty, to have that independence to produce AI domestically, independent of having to rely on another nation. It's extremely important, especially given the current geopolitical situations, very much like the energy independence. That's why governments are looking into having an on-premise data center, sovereign data center, which is governed by your own laws and regulations, etc.
India very recently announced the India AI mission. It's a very large mission which basically promotes setting up these infrastructures which are future ready for these use cases. Equally is Nvidia's own investments in India coming. So I just want to request if you can talk about what are your visions for India as a market. Where do you see this to become the global factory for AI?
Absolutely, yeah. Given India's rich talent pool, talent ecosystem, as well as the domain knowledge, I mean, India has been for years the software powerhouse. And many countries actually come to India to outsource, their software requirements. So this wave of AI is no different as how we are looking at it. And hence, we are partnering closely with Indian companies. We are looking at it across, the three main things is first around partners to build out the AI infrastructure, to build those national AI clouds. Secondly, our partnerships with the research and the research communities in India so that the joint innovations can happen here. And thirdly, with partnering with the ecosystem of AI startups as well as SMEs. So in all three fronts, Nvidia is collaborating very closely with government as well as the industry as well as with academia within India to advance this.
A very interesting thing that is said about India. You take a problem and multiply it by 150 crore, and that's how big a problem or even an opportunity becomes in India. And of course, there are always the questions of adoption. So, what are the impediments? Because you lead AI nations, and you have gone across the world and advised a lot of governments.
Yeah.
What are those specific impediments that you see in India when it comes to adoption of these? Because it's no longer a very linear cycle of adoption.
Yeah.
India is at the forefront of it. So what are those impediments that you see that can come in the way?
Yeah, even globally, I'll first touch upon some of the challenges, the barriers for AI adoption. Of course, in addition to some of the energy requirements, there's the availability of talent, which is critical in order to build, maintain, and deploy successful AI. India, I believe, has a huge advantage in that aspect of having that engineering and the talent, AI talent skill set. And as you said, population scale, the ability to deploy solutions for 1.4 billion people, it's not a joke. So India has a thing or two, the world has a thing or two that they can learn from India in terms of how deployments, population scale deployments are managed and operated. So those would be some of the challenges, I think, in terms of the availability of an AI-ready workforce. Again, what NVIDIA is doing here is tied back to our focus on democratization of AI, on upskilling. We have something called a Deep Learning Institute, NVIDIA's Deep Learning Institute, which is our online university. And that has a bunch of different formats of training professors as well as students within universities and help them become the trainers for the rest of the student base in their universities.
This is a very important thing that the India AI mission is also focusing on. There is a lot of focus on how to get our manpower skilled, how to get our researchers to do cutting edge work with AI. And there has also been talk that India and Nvidia might be working together to develop a chip here itself in India by Indians. So I want to understand from you, how do you see India as a talent powerhouse for AI chip design going forward? Because it is said that 20% of the chip designers of the world are in India, but we don't have any chip design IP here. So what's your vision for that?
I think that's a great place to show the deep collaborations between NVIDIA in terms of bringing that know-how, the skill set, and then training up and partnering with the right entities within India, which are focused on the Make in India concept. Because there are a lot of ways in which you can make that happen by finding the right integrations and working with the right ecosystem partners within India in order to build something which is Make in India and meets that requirement.
Another thing I want to understand is like all these population scale problems which are there, let's say agriculture, education. So what are some of the things, if you can highlight, that you are planning, thinking about, top of your mind, that you would like to solve for, and some of the approaches, unique approaches that you have developed for that?
Yeah. Now, when it comes to AI, it is successful if you have the right kind of data. India, again, has the biggest advantage, the biggest asset is the data, because of the uniqueness, also the availability of all the different data sets, whether it's agriculture, you brought up agriculture, or education or healthcare. And Nvidia has specialized software stacks for domain specific, such as healthcare and agriculture and climate resilience. We have built specific software SDKs for domains. And that actually allows the AI application developers to just focus on their domain. Doctors can continue to be doctors and lawyers can continue to be lawyers and just use AI and our software stack as a tool to develop the applications to solve their specific problems. So oftentimes the world thinks about NVIDIA as a hardware provider, but on the contrary, we are very heavily focused. In fact, 80% of our engineering workforce is working on building software because we want to make it easy for AI developers to use our hardware, to not to have to worry about all the nitty-gritties of the hardware. And so we simplify that through the form of our AI platform, our AI software, and let the AI developers do their work in a more efficient manner.
That is a revelation that 80% of...
Absolutely. 80% of the engineering workforce is focused on building software.
Wonderful. I think it'll be irresponsible to not ask about this elephant in the room, about this conversation around responsible AI, which I think slows down the adoption. Well, there is a larger value that everyone understands, and you, as in the forefront of AI adoption, what are the guardrails that you are proposing to the countries as well as in your own ecosystem?
Yeah, no, that's an important question. And, it is really about innovation and regulation, not one or the other, of course, and it has to go hand in hand. And I like the approach that India and many of the Southeast Asian nations are taking in terms of the innovation first approach, because AI is too early, in the early stages right now, where everybody is learning and we are still developing that. As a technology enabler, we are providing the toolkits, we are providing those guardrails. In fact, the name of our software is called NVIDIA Guardrails, which provides the ability for AI developers to design the AI in a responsible fashion in order for them to define the boundaries within which the AI should function and detect any kind of misuse of the technology.
Maybe a couple of more questions. The audience of this podcast are mostly policymakers on the administration front, and also the businesses who are looking to invest into this space. What are some of the recommendations that you would want to give to India? And I'm sure a lot of those would come out during this summit. But for the audience here, what are those recommendations, whether on the front of policy or on the front of skilling or investments or so?
Absolutely. Yeah. The success for a successful AI nation, there are a few key ingredients. It's all driven by the outcomes that the nation is trying to drive. So it's less about the technology at the highest level, it is about the outcomes. But underneath that, the main ingredients are AI-ready workforce, that's your AI upskilling and talent skill set. There's the AI ecosystem, which is your AI startups and SMEs and companies. And there is the data and models and having those best practices around sharing the data in a responsible way, etc. So the government can play a very key role for all of these key ingredients in terms of boosting the local AI ecosystem by providing access to compute, for example, boosting upskilling and AI talent development in terms of the kinds of programs that universities should be offered. I think that triangulation between the government, industry, and academia is what propels an AI strategy forward. So really the best practice is around finding out how government can really encourage those partnerships, those collaborations, and the key investments into the AI infrastructure.
I have one very important question for you.
Yes.
There are many use cases that we are talking about that would solve either business problems or society's problems. What is that one use case that excites you, that you think must be brought to the fore as quickly as possible?
Yeah, there's the world over is faced by climate change, right? As well as we saw in the recent pandemic, healthcare. So I think these two things are global, whether it's India or any other nation. This is something that the entire humanity is facing. And turns out that AI actually can come to the rescue on both of these. So I'm excited about healthcare and climate resilience, building a planetary scale climate resilience and having the ability to combat all of the, some of the most pervasive types of disasters. I think those it's possible now to be able to mitigate those risks. And then, of course, in healthcare, as we recently saw with the pandemic, the ability to do a faster drug discovery, to be able to manage and mitigate that spread, which India did very fabulously, as the world saw. So I think these two areas of building climate resilience and healthcare are the most exciting ones.
So before we let you go, what would be your message to the youth as they start to look at AI as their career?
Absolutely. I think everybody, each one of us has to use AI as a tool, as an educator. I'm not sure about you guys, but I definitely use AI pretty much every day as a tutor. And that's what I tell my children as well, is that use AI, use the tools. There's so many of them now. There's ChatGPT, there's Perplexity. Use these as a teacher, not to cheat, but to get smarter and to learn. Okay, so that's my advice to students, that get familiarized with AI as a tool, and you really take advantage of the tools and AI that is available to you today.
Great. Shilpa, thank you so much for
Yeah.
spending time with us.
Absolutely.
We are so proud of Nvidia's journey so far and its association with India. And we wish you all the best for the summit that begins today. And I'm sure there will be a lot of learnings for India as a nation and for global too.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.